Is this on? Okay, sweet. So a few months ago, I purchased DC Universe, a subscription service with several DC shows, movies, and comics. I mostly did this because I love the DC animated universe and I wanted to get into comics, but I also did this because I watched a review of a little gem called Doom Patrol. I will also try to give no spoilers on the show because I adore it and I want you to watch it. Without any further delay, let's begin. Alright, so Doom Patrol isn't exactly quote-unquote obscure. Like I said before, I watched a review and that's what got me interested. But I still feel like the show deserves a lot more attention. Not a lot of people are talking about it, and Doom Patrol is probably the least popular DC Universe original, or maybe second least popular after Swamp Thing. So in honor of Doom Patrol getting a second season, and because Birds of Prey made me want to commit wrist cut, I will be making hopefully compelling arguments as to why Doom Patrol is worth your time. So my biggest problem with modern comic-based media is how I feel like it lacks depth and maturity. This is going somewhere, I promise. That's the main reason why I don't enjoy Marvel movies, because I feel like they lack these elements. Marvel protagonists might have lost the ones they loved in something like the end of Infinity War. Big deal. The Doom Patrol protagonists, Cliff Steele, Larry Trainer, Rita Farr, Crazy Jane, and Booyah Man, went through traumatic experiences that left them physically and mentally scarred. Granted, these accidents also gave them powers, but they need to learn how to use said powers. Without doing this, the powers are more of a hindrance. Funnily enough, with the exception of Crazy Jane, they all led successful lives at one point, only for those lives to be taken away in exchange for trauma and unstable powers. To me, something about a story like that is just very mature. Almost like a classic tragedy of sorts, but with the superhero mix. Without spoiling too much, these accidents didn't just hurt our protagonists, they mentally scarred them. In some cases, these accidents took them away from their loved ones. There's a whole episode about Larry and Cliff reuniting with their loved ones, and I almost cried. I don't cry often during shows or movies. I am very impressed by the people behind the show. Anyway, after being scarred, these characters even learn a bit about themselves and how they were somewhat cowardly and selfish. And yet, that's another thing I adore about this series. These characters are not perfect. Some of them yell, like there's a lot of yelling in this show, I'm not kidding. Francis! And others aren't helpful towards the missions that they go on, because they don't see themselves as heroes. Despite the fact that this is a superhero show, these characters are people first, and heroes second, which is definitely a problem I have with Marvel cartoons, but that could be a video for another day. However, if you think this show is truly depressing, well, no, it's not. There's a lot of bizarre crap happening in every episode. In a way, though, this is a double-edged sword. For example, the episode Hair Patrol is probably my least favorite episode in the series. Instead of putting focus on our protagonists, which are definitely the strongest part of this show in my opinion, it introduces a new character called the Beard Hunter, who can access information of others based on the taste of their beard hair. And he is not as interesting as the protagonists. Not by a long shot. I'm also not a fan of the finale. It has several decent moments, but it also felt like the writers were just throwing several weird ideas into one story and hoped that would work. And without spoiling too much, it doesn't feel like a complete closer to the series. However, the writers must have known this because we are getting a second season. The strangeness of the show can also work in its favor. Not only is it self-aware,
What the f is going on?
We're all racist.
but it's also pretty entertaining. Like, how many other shows have a blue talking horse head with a French accent,
Oh, what is it now, Willow?
or a muscular guy who causes orgasms by flexing? Not that many. Doom Patrol is definitely one of the most unique shows out there. A lot of comedy is also based on character interactions. None of the humorous bits ever made me laugh, even though not much makes me laugh in general because I have a dumb sense of humor, but I still appreciate them because they give us a good sense of who these characters are. And the comedy is still much better than how painfully unfunny Marvel movies are. Yes, I will keep on bringing up Marvel movies as a comparison. I don't like them and I don't care what you think. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot to mention that a major focus of the show is the patrol looking for the man who brought them together, Chief James Bond, after he's taken away by Mr. McNobody, played by that guy who voiced K2SO in Rogue One, which is like the only thing I remember about Rogue One. Holy crap, that was a forgettable film. I don't want to get into too much detail about Mr. Nobody though, because he is a highlight of the show. What I will say is that he is like a less homicidal Joker with the ability to manipulate reality. He also breaks the fourth wall a lot.
I'm powerful enough to control this entire streaming service if I wanted to.
But unlike something like Deadpool, something that I cannot stand by the way, it's not for cheap humor. And it actually affects the story. Again, I won't spoil how it affects the story. Just look up clips online, or better yet, watch the show for yourself. That's why I made this video in the first place, holy crap. Not only that, but the soundtrack is amazing. The main theme of the show is catchy, but it also emphasizes how screwed up the characters are. The show also uses a lot of songs that I cannot play here because they are copyrighted, but said songs help set the tone for scenes and are just very well written in general. Finally, I want to talk about the cast, because what's a good show without a good cast, am I right? In my opinion, Doom Patrol has a great cast. In fact, a lot of people started watching this show because Brendan Fraser plays Cliff Steele. And yeah, I'd say that he gives a great performance, despite the fact that I haven't seen any of his films.
You what?
He could balance sad and humorous scenes. Before watching Patrol, I was only familiar with 3 cast members: Alan Tudyk, Mr. Nobody, Phil Morris, who plays Cyborg's father, and Ed Asner, who plays Mr. Nobody in the disguise of an old man in like 1 episode, and that's it. I didn't know any of the other actors, but I still feel like they all fit their characters perfectly. Probably my favorite was Diane Giro, who plays Crazy Jane and has to pretend that she has 64 different personalities. And yet she is still convincing, and she always seems like she's having a decent time while filming. One last thing before you watch though, the show can be pretty slow paced at times. I personally like the slow pacing because character driven shows for the most part are not supposed to be exciting, but I do know why a lot of people won't like that pace, and that is definitely fine. In conclusion, Doom Patrol is a show that I feel like can appeal to a wide variety of audiences as long as they're over 15 because there is a lot of cursing in the show. It's humorous, but also tragic. It's mature while simultaneously being very entertaining. And that's my review, so I hope you liked it.